Hello and welcome to today's tutorial. Today we'll be learning how to paint a lovely watercolor owl painting like this one. I want to give credit where credit is due. I was inspired to make this painting by an artist that I saw on Instagram, so I will link that individual here and you can check out their work. Today we'll be emulating their style. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. We will need a few items for today's video. One, I have my phone, which I have a picture of the original painting on here to reference that I'm using as my inspiration. And I also have the practice painting that I did earlier that I can reference. I have a few jars of water. You don't need to use anything special, just some old jars. You can even use plastic yogurt cups or anything like that. I like to have about 3 so I can cycle through as I'm washing my brushes. We also have a watercolor set. This is a pretty old set that I've had for a very long time. And one of the things that I love about watercolor is just how affordable it is relative to other painting types like acrylic or oil. You don't need a fancy watercolor set, but I do recommend investing in one of high quality, especially if you plan to paint on a regular basis. And I will list all the colors that we'll be using today on the bottom of the screen, just like Bob Ross does. And so you know which ones we'll be using. We may use some directly from the pots, but we will also likely mix some of our own paints today. And in order to mix our own paints, we will need some mixing pots like this. Sometimes I like little shallow ones like this, and sometimes, especially if I'm using a lot of water in my colors, I like a little bit deeper pots like this. The paint set does come with a little panel that you can mix paints in, but I often find these to be just too small for my needs. The other thing we'll need today is, of course, some watercolor paintbrushes. I also have some pencils because I like to sketch out, trace very lightly the outline of whatever I'm going to be painting. You'll notice that a watercolor paintbrush is only about 7 inches in length. If you were to have a oil brush or an acrylic brush, those are usually much longer. They're about 12 inches in length. Watercolor brushes are often very soft too, so they can pick up the water very easily. You also don't need to have anything too special for your brushes, although I have noticed that some of the investments that I've made in some higher quality brushes have been worth it, and I do notice a difference. I think the most expensive brush I have was $14, which is this one right here, and I think this one was about $10, and the others were only a few dollars each. So nothing too terribly extravagant. Now, I also like to keep a rag. This one has been used many times before, and this is just in case I need to blotch up a few areas where I've gotten too much pigment or water or something of that nature. So, it doesn't need to be anything fancy, just an old rag will do. The other thing that I like to have is a practice sheet. I like to lay down my colors, test them out, see what they look like before committing to them. I've also found that these can form some really beautiful abstract paintings that can be used as cards and thank you notes and postcards and things like that. You don't need to be too fancy, but I do recommend using the same type of watercolor paper that you'll be doing your painting on, so that the way it presents is reflective of how it'll present in your painting as well. Now, today, since I'm going to be sharing this painting with you, I've also elected to have some little velvet pillows here that I'm going to use to place my painting on, and hopefully that will make it easier for you to see what's going on. Watercolors are a little bit different than other types of painting in that you want them to lay flat so that there's not dripping, because the paint is so saturated with liquid. If you were to tilt it up on an easel like you would for an oil or an acrylic painting, it would really just become a complete mess. So you definitely don't want to do that. And I'm going to give a little treat to your ears here. I love the sound of velvet as well as the feel. It's really lovely. Now, I've already taken the liberty of taping down our watercolor paper. You don't need to use anything fancy. I recommend just a painter's tape or masking tape, and to tape down the edges like this. You can choose how much of the white edge you want left on the paper. This is, by the way, a cold pressed watercolor paper. And you can also use postal tape, which you just soak in water and then apply here and let it dry. The good thing about the masking tape is that there's no wait time involved. So let's go ahead and make room for this, and we'll get started painting our owl. So I'm hoping that you can see what I'm doing here. This is technically not a necessary step, but I do like to trace out what I will be painting. Just give myself a little bit of a roadmap. I do that with just a very light pencil. And I think what I'm going to do, also going to bring this over here. Ooh, excuse me. As a reference for what we'll be doing. I don't get too detailed or too crazy about it. I just mainly want the general shape so that I fill up the page exactly as I planned it. So first we kind of have the face of our owl here, and it's going to be an oval like this. We have the neck reaching out like that, with a bit of curvature here for the wing. Sometimes I need to use my eraser a little bit. And that comes down like that. It's very thin and then splays up. We have one large loop here, paints ready. We want to make sure that we have all the colors ready, because when the water is laid down, we want our colors to smoothly glide into one another, and the key to doing that is having everything ready. So I'm going to set this aside for right now. We'll bring that back later, and in the meantime, I'm going to start mixing our paints. So I see that we have quite a bright and vibrant red and orange color here. And so I think what I'll do, and when I mix the paints, I like to use a big brush, because that tends to pick up the most pigment, give you the most bang for your buck. So I'm going to start with cadmium red. I'm just going to wake up this paint right here. I'm just massaging the paint, making him a little bit enlivened since he's been dried out, since it's been a while since I've used him. And then I'm just going to brush in, pick up a bit of that pigment there. There we go. So you can see as well. Now, this does just seem a little bit too vibrant of an orange. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix in a bit of English red, which is a bit of a brown color. Now, I do apologize for how messy my paints look. I gotta tell you that I think this set is going on 5 years that I've had it. And that just speaks to how long a watercolor set can last you. Now, one thing that I recommend to people is to not get too hung up on perfection and to just start. Just start, and sometimes it can be hard to come up with an idea of your own, and that's alright. You can emulate different people, kind of learn the techniques through that emulation. I did take one watercolor class more than 10 years ago when I was in high school. And while I learned a lot in that class, the majority of what I know and how to do, I learned simply by practicing and teaching myself. Now let's take a peek at how this has turned out. I think we're getting very close. I think I want to intensify the red just a hint, so I'm going to go ahead and add ruby in. Just a hint of ruby. Alright. There we go. There we go. A little bit more of that cadmium red. There we go. Just a bit more. And you can take your brush and just press down in the paints just like that, just to get the pigments woken up and ready to join your painting, ready to join your nice, happy owl painting. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I love the sound of an owl. Ooh, 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 at night. Doesn't seem like it happens that often, but when it does, I find it to be very calming. Alright, I think I'm satisfied with this color. The next color I'm going to go for is the yellow-orange kind of color. That's the primary color of the wings there. I'm going to start with Golden Deep. Start waking up my Golden Deep. This is what Golden Deep looks like all by itself, just like that. Nice sunshiny color. With a warmth of the red undertone in the yellow there. Technically, you only need 3 colors to make any color that you want, but it is nice to have a variety like this. Certainly adds depth to any painting you might be doing. Just like that, we'll wake up our paints. And there we go. Oh, I think the Golden Deep doesn't need any mixture. Like I don't think we need to add anything to it. I think it's perfect all by itself. So I'm just gonna mix up a batch of that. Get ourselves ready there. There we go. Just make sure we have enough of that pigment in there. Here we go. Just like that. Alright, the next color we have is kind of a tan color. I'm going to start with the color Burnt. Burnt looks like this all by itself. Just going to wake it up a little bit. Set it here on the side. It does take a little bit of time to wake these guys up, especially once they've all dried out. Just wake it up. Burnt brown, we're waking you up. You're gonna join the painting today. Now, one of the things you can do is, if you want a lighter color like a tan, is instead of having just straight pigment, you just add some water. Just add some water, thin things out a little bit, just like that. Just like that. And that is very close to what we're looking for there. I'm going to add a bit of this raw. It's called raw brown. I'm just going to add a swatch of that there. It's a little bit darker, a little bit more earth toned. There we go. Let's see. And, oh, excuse me. Just going to add a bit of water there. There we go. Now, one of the colors we have is a very dark brown. So I'm going to go ahead and mix that next. What I'm going to use is Umber. And the Umber has a brown with very almost black tones. Umber looks like this, with no help from the other colors. We don't have a lot of this dark brown in the painting, but it is around the face of the owl quite a bit. It's a nice accent there in the feet. There we go. And I don't think it needs any help from the other colors, honestly. I think it's exactly what we're looking for. Now, sometimes you'll find exactly what you're looking for here in the palette, and that is wonderful. But if you're not, don't be intimidated. We can mix whatever color we want. Just a little practice. Just a little swatch to test out what we got. The other thing that's interesting is you can see what colors look like when you run them over each other. It can be an interesting technique if you ever want to do that. Alright, our next color here is kind of a sepia kind of gray. So I'm going to get that rolling here. So I'm just going to use my black, just like that. And the black is very pigmented. You do not need a lot, especially if you're trying to just make a gray color. We're just going to water it up. Make a nice wet black. I'm going to clean out that brush. You should probably clean out your brush after every one, but I figure it adds to the flavor, adds to the depth of the painting to have a little nuances in the color. A little of this and a little of that. And that is our gray. It is on the lighter side. And I think I want a little bit of brown undertones in there, so I'm going to add that like that. Let's see what we got there. Oh, that's perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for there. Now the next color that we have is predominantly a blue color. I'm going to start with ultramarine, which is a bit intense, but I'm going to add some earth tones after just a little bit to give it that earthy feel. I love paintings where the animal is presented in very whimsical colors, yet it still looks realistic, just like this painting that we're doing here. I'm just mixing up that ultramarine, just adding to our palette here, waking him up. I seem to use ultramarine quite a bit because I'm almost out, and that's okay. I do recommend painting as a form of therapy for anybody who's looking for something to spend their time. It can often create a flow state in our mind, which is very therapeutic to us as humans. To be engaged in a soothing activity that feels rewarding, where we get to create, be the masters of our creation for just a little bit there. Create whatever we want. An owl, a mountain, a river, whatever we want to paint. Whatever suits our fancy that day. Now, since I've switched to a cooler palette, I have changed water so I don't mess up my blue. Now next I'm going to add just a hint of the Madder Lake Red. Just a hint there. And I'm going to come in with Cobalt Blue. Just a little bit of the Cobalt Blue. Just a little bit there. It's going to make it nice and dark. This is what Cobalt looks like with no help from the rest. Very dark blue color. Very dark blue. I'm going to bring a little bit of the indigo in to our palette here. This is what indigo looks like without any help from the other colors. It's very dark blue, darker even than the cobalt or the ultramarine. Just breaking up our indigo there. I don't need a lot, and I'm definitely going to need to add some water. There we go. Mix that up nice and good. There we go. There we go. Let's see what our blue looks like. Oh, it's very close. I think what we need is honestly a bit of brown. I think we need to bring the tone down, bring it into a little bit more of a gray earth tone. Let's see here. That is perfect. I'm going to water it up a little bit because it is just a little bit dark for my taste. There we go. Just like that. Just like that. There we go. All right. Well, we may have to dip back into our palette when we're painting, but we have mixed all the colors that we'll be needing for our painting today. Like I said, it's very important that you prepare your paints in advance, especially if you're going to be using a technique called wet on wet, where the paper's wet and you're putting wet paint on, and the intention is that they flow together. So we'll set this aside here. I'm going to put our inspiration over to the side here for my own benefit. You might catch me glancing over here or at my phone because I am going to be looking at our inspiration. So unfortunately, I am not going to be able to paint upside down, so you'll have to bear with me just a little bit. But hopefully having the painting tilted towards you will be enough. So since the face does in fact appear to be one of the more complex areas, And it looks like there's some detail, so I may want some of the paint to dry and then go back in. I'm going to start here. And I am going to bring this just a little bit closer for my own benefit. Alright, now let's see here. I think I'm going to draw in my eye just a little bit here. Okay, and just like that. And swooping around. Alright, now for the eyeball, I actually am going to just go straight into the black. Just bring her in just like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our dark brown, I'm going to bleed it in. Just like that. And then I'm going to take the orangey brown and bleed it in. Just like that. Alright, and then I'm going to do the edge here in the dark brown. I'm going to bring it around just like that. Kind of frame the face there. And then just going to bring that down. Just kind of a little widow's peak there. I don't know if owls have widow's peaks, but this one does. I'm going to bring a bit of my blue in. I'm just going to make sure it's light like I want. I'm actually going to wet this space a little bit. And then bring my blue in just a tad. Just a tad there. Dabbling on the outside. This is what I was talking about. Sometimes you just kind of want to bring things in just a little bit. Sometimes things just get a bit too wet. You want to tap it up. There we go. It looks like we have a little bit of bleeding into each other there. Alright, now we're going to go on to the head. I'm going to just sweep a bit of water up here just to make everything go a little bit smoothly. There we go. And I'm going to bring, I kind of wanted this blacky brown color here. Actually going to dab in a bit of brown straight from the pot and let it bleed back just like that. And then this side I'm going to do a bit of the warmer brown color here just like that. There we go. There we go. There we go. And interestingly, there's just a little bit of blue there. Just an undertone. Just a bit. I'm going to bleed that together with the head there. There we go. Just like that. Back. There we go. And then once we get to this point, we are into the territory of our red. So I'm just going to lay the pigment down strong, and don't worry. We will have everything bleed together. And then I'm going to bring in that golden, just like that. bring that up. We really only have this edge as the red. There we go. We're going to bring that up to the tip there. There we go. That is looking lovely. And then we're going to come all the way up like that and down like that. Have a nice big tall wing there. And come down like that. We have a few pieces there. And I'm going to bring our tan color in. We've got a little bit of lighter color. Fades. The wing kind of fades as it comes to the top here. And a little bit more golden here. Just blend it all down. Blend it down. And look at that. We have some beautiful variation here. We've got some very, very strong red, dark red sweeping this way with the golden orange spraying off into the tan. And these tips here. I'm just going to pull that liquid back in. Just pull it back in, just like that. Now we will be coming in with some of the blue here. We do want to see that bleed. Get ourselves some interest, some texture in these wings, but I am going to sweep up a little bit of this liquid. It's just a bit too much on the ends there, just like that. Now we do want to have that. Now we do want to bring in these blue dots here. We want to have a little bit of interest, a little bit of texture. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to use a big brush like this. And just run it like that. I'm going to bring our dollop in here. They start about here. Bringing the dots down and kind of making them a bit brown. There we go. Just like that. Just like that. Okay, I like the way this wing is looking here. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a bit of that red there, sweep it along. Just blend that in a little bit better. There we go. There we go. And alrighty. Now I think we're just going to let this one sit. We're going to leave it alone and we'll move on to our other wing, which is that it is mostly that very blue color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start and bring a nice swath like that. Alrighty, there we go. Oops, there we go. Wipe that up. Alright, and then we're going to bring a little bit of the tan on the outside of the wing here. There we go, up to that lobe like that. Here we go. We're just going to splotch that all around there. Up into the middle. There we go. And then this outer part, I'm going to use a little bit of this brown. Just swoop it over. There we go. Nice big wing. This owl he's found a mouse and he's about to pounce on it. And that's why his wings are all splayed out. Or maybe he's landed on a tree branch, getting ready to take a nap and coo us all to sleep. You get to decide what your owl's doing. You get to decide the story for your owl. Now some of these tips had a little bit of blue on them, so I'm just going to bring that down. There we go. Just going to bring that start the blue down, fade it back down into the center. There we go. Just like that. Ah, perfect. Okay. I'm going to just sweep that back a little bit. And then blend down into the body, which is, again, mostly blue here. Sweep this down. And one thing I don't want to miss is this edge here has a dark brown highlighting that edge. There we go. Highlighting that very bottom edge there. Just bring it down just like that. I think we had some dog hair joining us. We'll just brush that aside. Alright. And we'll bring in a wide tail like that. And we'll just bring the tail in just like that. And we'll blend it back with some blue. There we go. There to the edge. There we go. And then we're going to bring the feet down just like that. Alright, I'm going to use this brown here. Got a little claw here and a little claw here. And it looks like a nice big long claw there and another one there. Some nice big talons over on that side too. I'm going to come in with a little bit of the deep dark brown on the edge there. To get the claws. To get those talons. Just like that. Then pull them back up. There we go. There we go. And then we have a few little splotches here. Right up underneath to attach the wings to the body there. There we go. And we're going to just bring that in just like that. I think one thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to take straight from the indigo there so we can get these darker ones. There we go. There we go. Getting the texture on this wing in the blue section here. Alrighty. One thing I want to do actually is I want to bring this wing just a little bit closer to this wing here. Almost touching, really. Almost touching. There we go. There we are. Bring the texture into our wing here. There we go. Just like that. There we are. Just like that. And I'm going to bring a little bit of this texture over in here. I'm going to lay the tan and gold over on this gold section of the wing. Just dabble just like that. Just like that. Just like that. There we are. Alright, now I'm gonna concentrate on the head up here. I'm gonna get some very fine stippling with some brown dots on the head. Bring some texture up there on the head of the owl. Make sure he's looking good, looking handsome. Has a nice hairdo. There we go. shape there. Just really frame that face. There we go. There we are. I'm going to take some blue as I fade it back up into here. There we go. There we go. I'm going to just fade these blue dots. Very, very intentional here where it's dry. Then just fade them out back into the wing there. There we go. I'm going to mix them with a little bit of brown. All the way up. Here we go. There we are. Just like that. All right. Squeeze the body back together just a little bit. There we are. Okay, add a little bit more blue stippling in. I'm going to add a little bit of the orange stippling here. There we go, just like that. Alright, just a little bit more. Just a little bit on the other side. Now I could play with this a little bit longer, but the danger with watercolor, at least for me, is if I play too long, I just seem to ruin it. So for now, I am going to call this a success. I'm going to call it a day. I think I've got one little wet spot up here. I'm just going to lightly dab. Now I think it's dry enough that I can take it up and show you guys what we've made together. And if I do say so myself, I think we have had a very successful watercolor painting. Oop, we're dripping, so I'm gonna lay him down. Just like that. And, you know, I love finding paintings that I think are interesting, that I think are beautiful, and trying to learn my own techniques and style and just going along and practicing, and I find it to be very therapeutic, and sometimes I even frame some of the pieces that I make to decorate my home. So I hope that this painting tutorial has encouraged you that you can paint anything you want. Watercolor is a great place to start. It's very forgiving and it's very affordable. Two very good things. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. I always love hearing from you guys. And as you know, I'm on a journey discovering my voice and learning about filming and video. If you'd like to join me on that journey, I would love to have you. It's been a real pleasure. Everybody I've met so far has been so kind, and I appreciate that so much. It's been its own kind of therapy for me, so if you feel so compelled, please do subscribe to my channel. I have a lot of wonderful